Welcome to the Kissing Spine podcast. How nice of you to join. In this podcast, I discuss several topics around kissing spine, like what kissing spine is, the different medical treatments, the function of different body parts, functional and dysfunctional training techniques, saddle fit, and a whole lot more. All put together to help you support your horse with the kissing spine. I wish you a lot of fun listening, and if you like this podcast, make sure to become a subscriber so you won't miss any of my episodes. Hi all, I am back! And that's really how it feels. Welcome to the Kissing Spine podcast. And, well, what can I say? It's been a buzzing few weeks, and I also really needed some time to recover from training, competing, and creating some amazing stuff for you guys. But here I am back, and we're going to kick it off again with a subject today that's very, very close to my heart: the psychological impact of kissing spine on the horse. It's even so close to my heart that I'm also doing a free webinar on this subject on Monday. I'm even going to do it 3 times a day so I can serve all time zones. And I'm pumped because more than 500 people have already signed up for it. So, yeah, and with that, I'm going to do one at 5 a.m. in the morning because, when it's nighttime here, it's not nighttime on other places in the world. So 3 times a day, 3 different time zones, and it's going to be a long day of doing webinars, but I'm loving it. I'm super excited about it. So if you want to follow this webinar, then check out my Facebook group, Kissing Spine Rehab Training with STJ Horse Training. Join, and there you will find events in the pinned posts and with a link as well where you can sign up. So do that. Coolness. So what about this psychological impact, and why is this subject so incredibly important to me? Well, let me get started on how I got onto this path of the psychological impact, because that all started with my non-kissing spine horse, Raven. She is a Frisian mare. She got with me when she was 3 years old, and she was my birthday present for myself 2.5 years ago. And so the thing with her was that she grew up at the breeder, and I picked her up, brought her to the field where my other horses were in during the summertime. And a month later, I brought her to the barn because autumn was going to set in and the weather was going down. The fields were getting too wet. So we had to take her to the yard. And then I decided to move yards. So in 4 months' time, I moved her 3 times from her breeder where she had never left the barn. Needless to say, this horse had a fair problem with settling because, she has been hopping places constantly, and this resulted in very anxious behavior. She was very stressed out. She was already a very energetic horse, and it just gotten worse. So I felt myself a little bit stuck how to deal with this super energetic horse. And she didn't feel naturally energetic. She felt stressed and anxious. It was this gut feeling of mine that I felt like there's stress going on. Like when I was around her, I felt stressed. So I discussed this with a couple of horsey friends of mine, and one of these people referred me to Warwick Schiller. Well, for the people who are not aware with Warwick Schiller, he is the guy from Warwick Schiller, Attuned Horsemanship. He has a huge group on Facebook. He's doing a podcast which is called The Journey On. If you haven't heard of it, it's absolutely worth listening to. It's my my guilty pleasure, to be honest. It's not just about horses, but it's about developing yourself as a human being as well. So he really went fully down the rabbit hole of personal development and took this along into his horse life. He's been a reining trainer, rider, and shower. He's a huge clinician with so many followers. Just his stuff is amazing to look at when it comes to horse psychology. I really love it. So I started looking at his YouTube videos, which is a huge channel as well. And at that time, he had a series that was called The Principles of Training. And this stuff just blew my mind. It was all about the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. So the two nervous systems that the horse has, one for fight and flight. So if something is up, the horse will throw his head up and would be super alert, and then pump blood to its muscles so it's ready to go. Like either it needs to fight or it needs to run, but the body is completely ready to respond. And then you have the nervous system that's there to relax. So for eating grass, for cuddling with friends and doing all these nice scratches, or sleeping. So these two nervous systems are incredibly important for the survival of the horse, because he needs to rest, the body needs to rest, but the body needs to be ready to fight and run for danger as well. So this is like pure survival mode. And this is what Raven pretty much was in all the time. She was constantly in survival mode because she was yet again in a strange surrounding that she was not feeling comfortable in. I was not even really working her at the time yet, not lunging, not doing work in hand, no nothing. Because I couldn't do it. If I would work with her, she would become dangerous. So what his videos explained to me was how to bring the horse from this fight to flight and take them out of that. It was sort of a guided meditation, so to say. So for the people who are not familiar with meditating, especially guided meditations, it's simply slowing down the mind. And just, if you have an overactive brain like I do, I have always a million worries and a million ideas in my head going like, foof, 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 going around. And, to bring some peace and quiet to your mind, doing a guided meditation is constantly like, okay, bring your focus and mind back to your breathing. So breathe in and breathe out. And if your mind wanders, that guided meditation is going to bring you back like, okay, if your mind wanders off, that's okay. Breathe in, bring your attention back to your breathing. Just focus on that breathing and let go of all these thoughts. So basically, this is exactly what you can do with your horse. So if the mind of the horse goes like, there's something going on and I need to respond to that, it's going into flight mode. And you want to be able to take him out of that flight mode. And that's what his videos were teaching me. And it was super interesting. How to do that and how that whole thing works, I will explain more in the webinar that I'm doing on this Monday, the 31st of October. You can sign up through my Facebook group, Kissing Spine Rehab Training with SCJ Horse Training. Join there and you'll find the links and stuff all there. But this stuff just blew my mind. Like, okay, so I need to bring them back down to relaxation. And like, I've been doing rehab training for the last 9 years, and I've been, focusing on how that back works and how that body works and how everything is connected, and, how the hind leg influences the spine, and, bringing that back up. Like, I've been working on that. I've been learning on that for almost a decade now. I'm feeling old when I say that stuff, but I've been dedicating almost a decade of my life to that stuff now. And it is all, when it comes to rehab of kissing spine, we're all talk about the body. So what do we need to do to rehabilitate that body? But no one is really talking about the mind. So for me, a horse with a kissing spine, my experience is that these horses have been over-asked in their jobs. Like, either they've become super dangerous, or they have become lame, or they've come completely unresponsive. And when that went sort of in a downward spiral, horse owners start to think about, okay, maybe something is wrong with my horse. I need to take a look into this. And pretty much that's when horses are diagnosed with kissing spine. And then they go down whole either the rehab or the medical route, or but it's all about the body, it's not about the mind. And with these overasked horses, either they shut down, so they become completely unresponsive. They're like, okay, I'm just going to pretend like the rest of the world is not existing. I'm just going to survive this bit. It's survival mode, huh? So I'm just going to get through this, and then, in 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or maybe an hour from now, all is going to be over, and then I can eat, and, But these horses are not mentally present. So these horses are not really responsive. They're not really feeling in the moment what's going on. So they're not responding. Or you have the horse that becomes anxious. So everything you ask of them is a trigger too much. And they respond to everything. They see everything. They smell everything. And then, when you try to ride them, they fully explode. And these horses just become flat out dangerous. And if you really have a bad one, they even start to attack you in the stall. Like when you come up with the halter, they're like, nope. They either turn around and kick, or they start to attack you with their front legs. That hasn't happened to me that often, but these horses are out there. I've had a few of them, and getting them out of all that trauma, because that's basically what it is it's a very, very long process. So when it comes to the psychological influence of kissing spine on the horse, it's fair to say that these horses are either burned out, and if you've ever had a burnout and people want stuff from you, at a certain point you either collapse or you start screaming. One of the things I like to refer to, if you've ever seen the movie The Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, I have. It's one of my absolute favorites. It has been for 20 years, and I'm sure it's going to be for a fair one. Maybe not 20 years. Maybe, I think the movie is, it's from 1997, I think. Oof, that movie is old. I feel old. So it's been one of my favorites for a very long time. And at a certain point, Rose, who's played by Kate Winslet, says she's like this rich girl that is completely unhappy and, sort of surviving in her way in a rich world. She says at a certain point, it feels like I'm standing in the middle of a room, screaming on top of my lungs, and no one is looking up. Well, this is a quote that I like to refer to when it comes to anxious kissing spine horses. So the horses that are really expressive and dangerous. These horses are screaming. They're screaming, no, stop. I don't want to do this. I cannot do this. Stop. I'm hurting. So if this has been going on for a fair bit of time, I had a horse that refused to work in the past that I realized now was completely shut down afterwards. I kicked her forward. I didn't know any better. For me, she was being, like a 5-year-old, full in puberty, and she was trying me out, and I need to kick her forward because that's what I was taught to do. Fast forward 10 years, I know now that was not what I was supposed to do. Looking back, I think her saddle wasn't fitting well. And that's what she was responding to. But, you need to learn from your mistakes. I've learned from my mistakes. And, I'm always trying to look back at, what did I do in the past and what should I have done? What things did I learn? Well, those is one of the things that I've been learning. So a horse that's screaming and the horse that's pretending not to be present, like a horse that's, not there, shut down, you need to get them either to calm down and teach them how to get out of that anxiety, or you need to teach them how to be more present. You need to teach them that it's safe to open up. And that is not the easiest jobs, especially if you're not familiar with what the psychological impact is. If you're not familiar that this is even an option or that it's even a thing, then you have a fair bit of learning to do all the aspects that come into this. More on the webinar. But it's what I started to do when I learned all these things is I was looking back, like what could I have done different with horses, but I also started to review the work that I'm doing right now. And the thing is that I started to realize even more why the work that I'm doing is working so well. One of the most important things of all my programs is that you need to work the horse at the level that it can function at. You need to work the horse where it can stay soft and relaxed and use the body properly. And as soon as the horse is getting tense and you're losing the relaxation, you need to take a step back. That is one of the most important key points in all my programs. You need to work the horse at the level where it can be worked. You don't want to be too low because then the horse is going to get bored. It's not going to be fun if you're asked to give 10% all the time. But you don't want the horse to be at 120% because then it's going to get anxious. It's going to lose the body, it's going to lose the mind, and you're not going to get anywhere except, you will get into a downward spiral. Of course, if you have one session every 3 to 6 months that you're going to ask 120%, totally cool. But you want to stay between that 95 and 105% area. That will be ideal. So one of the things that I'm doing with all horses is getting them to respond. And when they respond, I respond to them. So, for example, if I ask a horse to stretch and he is giving me a little bit of getting a horse to stretch starts with hind leg activation. I discussed this in earlier podcasts. So if I would ask a horse to activate the inside hind leg and the horse would do it, I stop and reward. If the horse would not respond, like stand still, if a horse is unresponsive, I would just keep on tapping until, even if the horse would lean forward, I would stop and reward because it's thinking into the right direction. And that is the whole thing that works. Making sure that your horse notices that you've noticed a difference. Let me repeat that. Making sure that your horse notices that you've noticed a difference. Because the more your horse realizes that you're noticing the little things, the more the horse is going to trust you. So Warwick Schiller calls this, your horse knows when you knows and he knows when you don't. And that's not referring to that you know what you're doing, but your horse will know when you're present. Your horse will know that you've seen something, that you've noticed something. And that is such an important part in training. So while I was not doing all the groundwork that Warwick suggested, or that Warwick has showed through his videos and his podcasts and his subscription stuff, that what the possibilities are with exercises and stuff, but just his explanation of this little part made me realize why my programs work so well. So when it comes again to activating the hind leg, if you'd ask a horse that is non-responsive to step away with the inside hind leg by the tap of a whip, you would tap the horse and he would not respond. Then you would tap a little more and then tap a little more. And then when you start to notice that your horse wants to start moving, so there's a difference, that would be the moment to reward. Not after he has done 20 steps, but the moment that he thinks about starting to move, that will be the moment you want to reward your horse. So with an active horse or a more anxious horse, it's as soon as they lower their head and think towards the contact and relax a tiny little bit, you stop and reward. You show that you've seen the difference. That is an important part. That's how you explain to your horse that you've noticed it, that you're present and that you're there with your horse and that you're connected with your horse. So this is a tiny little thing. More of this stuff I'm going to discuss during my webinar on the 31st of October. If you've missed it, if you're listening to this podcast after the 31st, just DM me, send me an email. You can approach me on Facebook, whatever it is that you want. I will make sure that you can get a link to the replay or some other way to get access to it. Because there's so much more to this subject when it comes to situations that you can notice. There are a few indicators that will make you more aware of where your horse is at. I will share a couple of things that you can run into in your process of rehab when it comes to trauma. All this stuff I'm going to cover during this live webinar, so I can only suggest that you're going to sign up and join me on Monday. That would be awesome. But again, if you've missed it, you can just approach me, email, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, just send me a message and I will make sure that you will get access to the videos, to the replays. So thank you so much for listening. I'm hoping that this is giving you a little bit more insight of the psychological impact of kissing spine on the horse. I'm really hoping that you're psyched about it and you want to learn more about it, because I think it's absolutely a beautiful subject. And I think if you spend more time on this subject, learning more about it, that you can improve your relationship with your horse in so many ways, but also bring back more fun and working with your horse, because you're going to see all the things that's going to improve. You're going to focus on, hey, that went better, or hey, I got a response, or hey, my horse relaxed, or hey, my horse got responsive. You're going to notice the tiny little differences and the tiniest little things that will have a positive focus on, instead of, oh, I still cannot ride my horse. Oh, I have no idea if it's going to go any better. So turning that whole thing around is going to change your, how do you say that? Your perception of rehab and your training and your connection with your horse as well. And don't we all just want to enjoy spending time with our horses? I know I do. So the more we're focused on the positive stuff that is here, that's going to become. For now, I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm going to help you get them answered. I would like to thank you again for listening to this podcast. If you think that this podcast is interesting to someone else, please share it on social media so others can find it too. This way we can create more awareness about what the options are with a kissing spine horse.